try to find a straw hat here. Yeah. A card like just the 4 cost blocker Marco is just so and we know it's strong because it got limited, right? So like
Absolutely.
it's just so strong. It provides like just it just provide. I think we all know what Marco does at this point. I don't have to harp on it for too much, but it's just that I think is why people would choose the Whitebeard version of this. And we're actually going to find a Rush Luffy.
Yeah.
Generally a card we're going to see in a more aggressive version of Zoro. Katakuri, draw, pass.
So very common for Karakuri to skip its first turn unless they want to play something like a Sanjidan, but you don't want to overexpose yourself to maybe a Nico Robin or a Vista here from the side of the Zoro player. So contesting the early board, very much relies on him hitting a trigger here in the first couple of life. Notably, from what you mentioned before, they can also hit something like a Cracker, which can aggress the Zoro player's life and creates this sort of a racing situation. There's the Vista, like we were saying before. So this player is actually playing a hybrid of 2 builds. What do you think about that?
There we go. Oh, I forgot this guy's name. This guy's effect is same as the 1-cost starter deck Nami. You can attach a Rested Dawn to a leader or character. And this is actually a Whitebeard pirate. So pretty interesting that Zoro is playing this. He's also a little bit bigger than Nami, so he turns into an attacker. That is so interesting.
Yeah, no. So this card, actually in playtesting itself, coming to this event, just learning OPO3 a little bit, he's actually a very aggressive card. He can become essentially self-sufficient 5k for only 2 Dawn, which is, right up Zoro's alley. So it's definitely a good card for him to have in this sort of hybrid strategy he's going for. He's kind of hedging his bets between using some of the, cards that we know are really powerful that are limited, after this event, while also playing the aggressive Luffy cards as well. So it's actually pretty cool.
That is essentially the same effect as the Luffy leader. So here through this character card, we're kind of essentially getting a Luffy leader and a Zoro leader, and that is just so powerful. And so we saw Katakuri look at his life and he left it on top, which leads me to believe it's going to be some type of trigger play this card. It could be a Cracker, a Smoothie, even a the mermaid, Shirahoshi. I forgot its name for a second.
Exactly. And I do believe the Zoro player really does not have a choice, at least in the first few lives, to try to play around something like those triggers. So we'll see if it's something very influential. And it actually is. So we're going to see another 5k enter play here. And these 2 5ks from the side of the yellow player are actually just holding down the field quite well. These weenie cards from the side of Zoro haven't been able to be as effective as maybe the Zoro player would want. But he does have Marco, which is kind of a mid-rangey tool he can use here for a couple of attacks later on. So definitely not falling that far behind. So
yeah, Marco, just a great body. It's hard to remove through, traditional KOing removal because you can discard an event card and bring it back. Now in Zoro, those event cards come in a little bit more of a premium than something like Ace or even Whitebeard because those radical beams, guard points, you can also play like Fire Fist, Jet Pistol. There's plenty of events Zoro can play. They're just at a little bit more of a premium than with Ace where you're flooded with events like all game.
Exactly. And being able to have an outlet for those dead events in your hand is something that this Marco allows the Zoro deck to do. So you can have a lot of defensive event cards that if you don't use them, you can use them as offensive cards when it comes to Marco. So a very good tool to have. And especially in a grindy matchup like this, I expect the yellow player to be able to heal a couple of times, force out a lot more cards from the Zoro player. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh, we're going to see a Streusen. So Streusen is on play, discard a card with trigger, and KO a 1-cost. That is removal, but it is actually very costly because you have to play a 2K to the field, and then you also have to discard a card with trigger. So you essentially got rid of 2 cards in your hand there just to kill off an Izo. He might be a little scared of the pressure,
Yeah, so I feel a play like that is warranted when you are going with something like a Buggy, for example. But from the Zoro side, both of those 1-drops already got a card to his hand, and they're not that much of an eligible attacker as they need 2 Dawn in order to be able to attack. So not necessarily have them as high priority targets, but now that there's 1 less Izo in play, maybe there's a little bit better of a defense coming from the Karakuri. So I can understand his perspective, wanting to get rid of as much of the board as possible.
That's very true. And now, like you said, these two bodies, they swing for 7K so easily. Putting Zoro at 2 life, he is now in lethal range. It's not uncommon that you can just, equip Don and attack him the following turn, right? A lot of the times Big Mom might not have strong plays until we get to like 8 and 10 Don. We have like their big bombs. So you're going to see this a lot where in the mid game, you're just going to equip your Don to your characters and attack a lot.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Definitely using aggression here as a form of defense is the Karakuri player, because now Zoro is a little conflicted between attacking these 5K character cards or the actual Karakuri leader. So he has to choose whether he wants to race essentially or try to control the field. I would personally control the field, leverage my Dawn a little bit in order to use it as removal against these 5Ks, because at 2 life, even though he has Radical Beams, he has potentially a Marco blockers here. It is a little bit of a scary situation.
Yeah, and if you get rid of Pero Sparrow, you look at the top 3 and grab a Big Mom Pirate, so it can even replace itself, keeping that hand size up as much as possible. So it can get a little scary. Ooh, a Makino, okay.
And we see a Makino come down here to buff the Nami, and this Makino and Magura might be the reasoning why he chose to destroy the Izo earlier. So a decent heads-up play from the yellow player side. Let's see if the Zoro player can actually convert this Nami pump into any sort of damage.
Yeah. And it just works so good. I'm about to look up this guy's name. I really he's such an obscure character. This little guy here. But using that effect, again, much like the Luffy leader, his name's Haruta. Yeah. The Whitebeard pirate Haruta.
Yeah, it's actually quite fantastic because he gives you the ability to play something like this Makino, then have a free Dawn equipment on your leader Zoro, which is a lot of value for Zoro's effect, and then be able to use the rest of your Dawn for something more proactive. So definitely a great card.
Yep. Going after the smoothie first, I like that because again, if you attack the Parasparrow, he just lets it die and gets to replace a card in his hand. If you go after the smoothie first, it's going to be a little harder for him to keep that hand size up.
So something to note here, maybe he doesn't have anything else more proactive to use his Dawn with, but definitely attacking with this Marco for 8, maybe 7 is the same number when attacking something like Brave Sparrow. But again, he's feeling the pressure and he wants to just make sure to get rid of the yellow player's board.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Oh, and now we're going to see a Vista here to get rid. The Vista he searched all the way back on turn 2 to get rid of the Streusand. And we are looking at a full board to a completely clear board. I will say the state of the game has shifted quite a lot in one turn.
Yeah, so this is actually exactly how the Zoro player wanted to answer the entire board, and he did so quite well. And now he has 5 potential attackers, except for Makino, so 4 potential attackers on the way back. So even if Karakuri player plays something like a large bomb here, he's going to get answered with a lot of pressure. So he might not actually have the space to play one of his bigger cards. He might opt to play something more like a 4-drop and maybe something smaller, but we'll see if he has the tools available to deal with these 5 cards in play.
Yeah, and yellow is not very well known for having a ton of removal. A lot of the removal is very costly. Like Streusand, Thunderbolt, like these all cost not a lot of Dawn, but a lot of resources, So it's just going to be pretty difficult here. Not to mention, again, Big Mom can get stuck on the bombs, so he might just end up devoting most of his Dawn to some type of bomb here. And yep, there we go, 7-drop Big Mom.
So not as ideal a play as he would want, but definitely something to either deal the damage to the Zoro player and maybe leverage an attack for 7 here from Karakuri. He could get Zoro down to potentially 0, depending on what he chooses, or otherwise he goes up to 4 life and maybe gets a few more triggers in his life, and that's a good combat mechanic for him. So we'll definitely see what the option is here. I can see a burn or a heal from the Zoro player side.
Yeah, we can break it down, right? If Zoro just burns a life here, it can put him at a bit of a lethal range from the 10-drop Big Mom. And if you give your opponent a life, it's exactly what you said. You're giving him this type of comeback mechanic. So yeah, he ends up giving it to him, which is, I think it's the safer play. It's just your opponent's not going to do a great job of clearing the board here. So you can put him at a low life total again, just on the crackback.
Yeah, and I do also like choosing the heal option. Again, like you're saying before, putting yourself in a dangerous lethal range going down to 1 life is guaranteed, but the triggers off of the yellow player's life are not guaranteed if they're off the top of the deck randomly. So
Hmm.
I'll just put him on, better have something in his life in order to save himself. And it feels
Yeah,
like a
see,
more comfortable play.
yeah, and it actually looks like the Katakuri player went after the opponent's leader there instead of the Makino. You could definitely get a free clear on the Makino by attacking the leader. You want to put him down to 1 life, again, which puts him in lethal range to a 10-drop Big Mom. So we could very well see that. I wonder, do you feel like you attack the Makino over there anyway? It kind of prevents this Nami from getting really big really quick.
So I actually believe that what you do here, and the Karku player maybe sees this too. It's basically you try to attack leader as hard as possible from this sort of a racing situation because you want to end the game with, like you said, this 7-drop mom and then the 10-drop mom, coming down the next turn. And I
Mhm.
feel like you just leverage this 4 life advantage to the 2 life advantage from Zoro that you have. If the Zoro player goes down to 1 life, then you can find really easy lethals on the way back. So I do enjoy attacking the Zoro leader there, as it gives you outs to be able to win because you are very desperately behind on board as it is.
Okay.
So we'll definitely see if the yellow player can convert some sort of a sneak win here, or if the Zoro
Yeah.
player runs him out of cards. And I do believe attacking a bunch of times for 5 and 6 is what the Zoro player might want to do here, just to chip away at life.
Yep, it does feel like that's generally how you want to, beat the Big Mom deck. It can handle some bigger things. It has something like an ICO sovereignty, which gets you
Mhm.
to 10. But I mean, just attacking, what's Zoro good at? 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, right? So,
Exactly. Now we see here.
uh,
Oh,
there
and
we
there's a
go.
silent chain like you mentioned before. And actually
Mhm.
triggering it here leads me to believe that the yellow player does feel like if he survives this turn, he might have a chance to survive the next turn also, and then just guaranteed in the next 2 turn cycles to win. So he's just trying to dump as many dead cards from his hand as possible. You
Mhm.
saw 2 bombs leave his
Yeah,
hand there, and then just stay alive because, like we said before, if he has some character cards in life, he can try to clear this board on the way back.
absolutely. Yeah. All right, we're gonna see 7 at lead here. He did take the last one, so. All right, this is the and he got a Thunderbolt. That's going to be great. What do you think? You clear the Haruta here?
So it's actually quite interesting, the Thunderbolt here, because he might want to try to blow up the biggest card in play, which is Marco, to force out the Zoro player to have an event in hand. And if you take away a defensive event from the Zoro player's hand, you might find lethal that way. Alternatively, like he did here, he just kills the Vista and makes sure that he doesn't get poked for 5 again. I would have actually preferred like what you mentioned, killing the Haruta, because it actually has an effect in play as opposed to the Vista. The Karakuri player just choosing the highest Dawn card that he could kill, but in this case, killing the Haruta actually has an effect, so it might have been a better
Yeah.
target. But either way, relieving the pressure is what matters most here.
Exactly. Preventing basically just that Thunderbolt basically stopped one attack. And when you're, if your game plan is, just play a 10-drop Big Mom, then every attack matters because,
Agreed.
you just, it's right. He's been taking, these
Fives and sixes.
low, yeah, he's been taking 5s and 6s, which means his hand is probably just flooded with bombs.
And we saw there discarding 2 bombs, so very indicative that his hand might be very heavy. And if I was Zoro, I would continue here. If he actually has another rush character, he has some ability to end the game this turn, so it's actually quite scary.
Yeah.
And we'll
All
see
right.
a
There
little
we go.
bit.
We're going to go 7 on Haruta.
Yeah, so the Zoro player identifying that his opponent is in a little bit of a difficult situation, taking just everything on the leader, leaving him at 0.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see if there are some scenarios where 10-drop mom is the correct play because you could get a very lucky trigger off of the life that you get from her. Being at 0 is very
Yeah.
not ideal for that. And it just leads into believe if he couldn't block the 6s and the 5s earlier, it just means he can't block any of these large numbers. So unfortunately, going
Yeah.
down to 0 was inevitable there.
Right. And, slamming the 10-drop here, it's going to put your opponent at 1 life. really kind of puts him in that position of like, I don't know how much counter power he has in his hand. All he would have to do is counter out of a 5K and basically survive. So it's going to be real tough here, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and you
And
can
you're gonna
see.
have, I don't know if there is a trigger that you could even get, you know, not getting any on play bodies off of that 4 life, although he did get a sovereignty and a thunderbolt. Not getting like a Parasparrow or a Cracker. Like Cracker would be insane here, because you could just put your opponent at 0 and then go in with the big mom. Like Cracker would actually be really good here, but he didn't get it, so he's really at this, you know, not great position.
Yeah, and this goes back to the play he actually made earlier where he went 7 at lead trying to chip some damage. Like you mentioned, if he had gone in, maybe he was playing towards something like a character card in his life because he could try to get a sneak lethal on this turn. Maybe he identified that he couldn't beat this wide board and he was trying to go for a 2-turn lethal plan. But like you mentioned, he did not end up getting those tools out of his life. Sometimes you just live and die by the triggers that you get in yellow. So.
Very much, absolutely. Like you said, having a Cracker here would just, you know, really basically change the nature of the game. But because you weren't able to get that body, then it's tough. So actually getting rid of the Marco is smart. I like that. He can put a Don on his leader to swing for 7 and then leave 2 up for a sovereignty. I felt like he probably wanted to go after if you look at your hand and you know I can't out counter a 5K, like he took the Nami swing, and the Nami swing was like a 6K, right? So it's just like, if you know you're going to take that, then you really might just want to, you know, go after the board there a little bit to prevent that damage.
No, I agree with that 100%. And I feel like here not leaving up sovereignty, because it could be a sovereignty in his life and he could actually draw into it, you know, play into that sort of an out to survive an all-in. Maybe something like that had more merit than going for this 8 attack on Zoro. Because I feel like a 7 would have also taking the Zoro out of the board. So maybe just leaving yourself that, you know, extra defensive condition from drawing the sovereignty from your life. It's a niche, you know, little situation, but I hope it doesn't come back to bite him. And at the same time, it's looking, you know, dire, but not so dire. The Zoro player needs to have something like a Rusher here to really solidify lethal. Because depending on what this life is plus what the yellow player's hand is, he might survive. I'm not gonna lie.
That's true. Yeah, you know, this is a completely random life off the top of the deck. Something like a Brule could be good. I think a sovereignty would probably be the best one, gaining an additional extra life. And then, hey, maybe that life could be a Brule. And now we're playing the slot machine at Katakuri. How good could the top of my deck be? What is this? How good could this random card possibly be?
And a Brule here absorbing an entire attack for maybe 7 or 8 would actually make him survive. If he survives his turn, he definitely has options for lethal on the way back. The Zoro player is mostly out of fuel here, so he wants to try to end the game this turn.
Yeah. We do know all the way back from turn 1, he does have that big Luffy rusher all the way that he got back on turn 1. So here we're just going to probably just think, you know, I think he's probably thinking, how do I use this Haruta to the best advantage? I really wish the Thunderbolt would have hit the Haruta instead of the Vista, because like you said, now this Haruta has gotten 2 Dawn worth of value after that Thunderbolt, which, I mean, that's a lot of Dawn right there. That's a lot of extra power over the course of 2 turns.
Yeah, every Dawn, you know, once you have an eligible attacker that's 5K or more, every Dawn is essentially an extra card that, you know, the opponent discards. So definitely a lot of value from this Haruta. I would have wanted it to be destroyed as well. And this Haruta might actually matter even more than the yellow player believed previously, because if you have 2 Dawn on the Rush Luffy, he actually can be blocked. So if this ends up being a Miracle Brule off of his last life, it might not even end up mattering in the end. So definitely very, you know, big deal that the Haruta's alive here.
Oh, we got to pull out the dice. That means we're gonna got to pull out the dice. That means we're gonna
try to go for it.
Gonna be doing something here. I don't know. It looks like the way his Dawn is positioned. There we go. Oh, another Makino. That is huge. This Nami is huge. So it's right now it's 8 when Haruta puts on to the leader. This is now at 9. Oh, and a Magra. This is now an 11. This Nami is about to go in. This is an 11K Nami.
So we definitely threw math out the window here. I find it difficult to believe that he's not going to take this one. Does he get
Oh,
a
no
trigger? He
trigger.
does not.
And are
And
we?
what do we
Yeah.
see here?
Let's see. We have what is it? 8 Don left. So we could just make our leader a +9 here. So 14. Couldn't out combo 11. Can you out combo 14? I guess not. All right. And okay, maybe not.
So the Zoro player just making sure that he covers all his bases, making sure that his math
Okay. So this
doesn't
is
get mixed up in
13.
any way here. So
8 Don on our leader. This is now 13. If you couldn't get out of an 11, can you get out of a 13? And no.
and the answer is no. And we see,
Quite a lot of counter power in his hand.
Yeah, so from the way that his hand looks at the end of this game here, I do want to believe that the Karaku player could have potentially stopped some of the 5 and 6Ks that he was taking earlier. Maybe that defending that chip damage might have been important for him, or maybe he just drew those